Well, joining me now is former Conservative MP Louise Mensch, here in New York with me, former BBC Head of Ethics, Akhil Ahmed, and Times radio host and former BBC broadcaster John Pienaar. All right, John Pienaar, you've been BBC man for so long. What do you make of this? I mean, yesterday it seemed to be a squabble over the veracity. Today, this bombshell development of the BBC themselves getting their own separate complaint from a second individual about this star presenter. Where do you see this story going?
Well, look, on the basis of what we've seen, and all I know is what we have all seen, is it feels like we are at something like a tipping point. The situation yesterday, it looked messy enough. It was clearly perilous for the presenter. It was clearly embarrassing for the BBC, and we heard the Director General of the BBC saying today in an interview and at that briefing earlier on that this was damaging to the BBC. Well, how could he say really anything else? We had a situation where allegations had been made. They were disputed. They were disputed firmly, although very, very vaguely, but a conflict of evidence. And now we have something more. Having something more, I think, begins to take the story into a different dimension. Another young person alleging effectively abusive conduct, expletive-laden emails in pursuit of an attempt to date this young person using a dating app. It gets more and more messy and reflects more and more, I think, damagingly on the presenter, according to the account that we've seen so far. Stress again, we don't know the ins and outs, we as mere onlookers, of what went on here fully behind the scenes. But it begins to feel like a tipping point, and who knows what comes next.
I mean, John, you know a lot of senior people at the BBC. What is the mood like there, do you think, amongst other BBC presenters? Is the general mood that this presenter at the centre of this should name himself and put this feeding frenzy to bed by actually coming out and talking about it openly as the person?
As Piers are not there, I'm again going by what I see and read, and what I read into what I'm seeing and reading. And what I'm seeing and reading this evening again suggests to me that the situation is rather unravelling. When you have Jeremy Vine, who is another nationally known broadcaster, calling publicly on this unnamed presenter to name himself, talking about the BBC being driven, I think the phrase was, being driven down to its knees, discussing this in terms of chaos publicly, for goodness sake, on social media. One high-profile presenter addressing another anonymous high-profile BBC presenter. The thing is coming apart at the seams. And that, I think you can imagine, because I certainly do imagine, is just the tip of the iceberg. Although I use the word iceberg ill-advisedly, it's a lot hotter than that, I imagine, at Broadcasting House.